The Philippines and the United States have signed an agreement to develop the Subic-Clark-Manila-Batangas Railway, aiming to boost trade and economic activity.
The Department of Transportation, or DOTR, said the funding for a feasibility study for a Subic-Clark-Manila-Batangas Railway is being prepared.
A railway backed by the U.S. military, cutting straight through the heart of the Philippines. Is this the country's most powerful infrastructure project yet? In what's being called a game changer for Asia's logistics and defense, the Subic to Batangas Railway project is about to redraw the map of Philippine connectivity. Stretching 250 kilometers, this mega rail line will link two of the country's most powerful port cities, Subic Bay in Zambales and Batangas City in southern Luzon. But here's what makes it explosive. It's not just for cargo or commuters. It's a dual-purpose lifeline for both economic growth and military readiness. Backed heavily by U.S. funding and strategic cooperation, this isn't just another railway. It's a signal to the entire Indo-Pacific region that the Philippines is stepping up. With China watching closely and the world recalibrating alliances, the project is not just steel and cement. It's strategy, sovereignty, and survival rolled into one. This isn't just steel on track, it's strategy in motion. The Subic to Batangas Railway is shaping up to be Southeast Asia's most strategic infrastructure project, backed by Washington and Tokyo and designed to pierce right through the economic and military core of Luzon. It's 250 kilometers of dual-use rail, connecting two deep water ports, multiple free port zones, and the front line of the Indo-Pacific chessboard. As Chinese-backed projects collapse and geopolitical flashpoints intensify, this railway has become more than a transit line. It's a logistical lifeline, a military artery, and a clear message. The Philippines is done waiting. From daytime cargo hauling to emergency troop movements, this corridor will redefine what transport means in an era of regional uncertainty. With full feasibility funding now upgraded to $3.8 million, a U.S. TDA-backed blueprint in place, and construction slated for 2027, the momentum is real and irreversible. This isn't just about moving goods. It's about moving history. Abandoned by China, revived by the U.S. arm to reshape the Philippines. In a year defined by shifting alliances and rising regional risks, the Philippines has just pulled off a bold play that's catching the world's attention. On June 26, 2025, the long-dormant Subic to Batangas Railway roared back to life. This time, not with Chinese backing, but with $3.8 million in U.S. support, a revitalized partnership with Japan, and a clear message: the era of strategic hesitation is over, spanning 250 kilometers. This isn't just a railway. It's a steel artery, connecting two of the country's most critical deep water ports, slashing logistics times, hardening national defense, and binding key economic zones into one seamless corridor. From Subic, Clark, and Manila to Calabarzon and Batangas. More than that, it's a dual-use asset. Military when needed, commercial by default. And in a nation hit by over 20 typhoons a year, it's a game-changing tool for disaster response and humanitarian lifelines.
Toward the northern islands of the Philippines, this is a monster storm.
In the Philippines, they are reeling from the devastation of Super Typhoon Rai, the monster storm hitting with the strength of a Category 5 storm.
Subic Bay, once America's largest overseas naval base, now reemerges as a hub of global trade and regional deterrence. Meanwhile, Batangas Port, already handling nearly 500,000 TEUs, serves as the southern anchor to Luzon's industrial belt. But between them, choked highways, traffic paralysis, a logistical Achilles heel. This railway slices through that bottleneck, unlocking not just movement, but momentum. This isn't aid, it's alignment, a shared future shaped in steel. U.S. TDA official June 2025, as the U.S. and Japan deepen their economic and security roles in the Indo-Pacific, and as Manila distances itself from stalled Chinese projects, this railway becomes far more than infrastructure. It's a declaration of sovereignty, of resilience, and of readiness. With construction set to begin by 2027, the Subic to Batangas Railway is no longer just a blueprint. It's a geopolitical hinge on which the future of Philippine logistics and strategic independence may well turn. At the heart of the Philippines' bold new infrastructure strategy lies a game-changing corridor, the 250-kilometer Subic to Batangas Railway, a dual-purpose mega-project designed to deliver both economic surge and military readiness. As of June 2025, the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, USTDA, has already injected over US $3.8 million in grant funding to kickstart feasibility studies and technical planning, underscoring deepening ties with the Philippines under the U.S.-Japan-backed Indo-Pacific framework. But make no mistake, this is more than tracks and stations. It's a national backbone in the making. The route begins in Subic Bay, Zambales, once a U.S. naval fortress, now a key logistics and freeport zone facing the contested West Philippine Sea. From there, it runs through the industrial heartlands of Pampanga, Bulacan, Metro Manila, Cavite, and Laguna, before terminating in Batangas City, a southern maritime hub hosting one of the country's busiest ports. These intermediate stops aren't afterthoughts. They are the economic ignition points of Luzon. Every node becomes a logistics magnet, said a senior DOTR planner. From Clark's Aerotropolis to Calabarzon's factories, this line becomes a super corridor. Technically, the project will use standard gauge, 1,435 millimeters, to align with global railway norms, supporting high-speed and heavy-load operations. While early phases may start with diesel locomotives, full or partial electrification is being explored for greater efficiency and environmental benefit. Trains are projected to operate at 120 to 160 kilometers per hour, with segments potentially reserved for military priority use when needed. The line will integrate cutting-edge infrastructure, elevated viaducts, bridges, tunnels, smart stations, and maintenance depots, all designed for resilience in a typhoon-prone country. This isn't just rail, it's rapid response logistics, noted a U.S. defense attaché, pointing to the railway's potential in humanitarian and national defense scenarios. Financially, the project is shaping up to be a multi-billion-dollar investment, with early internal estimates placing the full build-out north of $8 to $10 billion. Funding is expected to come from a mix of U.S. grants, USTDA, USAID, and Department of Defense cooperation funds, concessional loans from U.S. Exim Bank and Development Finance Corporation, DFC, and public-private partnerships, PPPs, with American and possibly Japanese firms. Meanwhile, the Philippine government will provide land acquisition, policy support, and potentially contribute to operational costs. This isn't debt diplomacy, emphasized a senior official. This is a high-trust, high-impact alliance model. The project unfolds in 4 key phases. Phase 1, feasibility and engineering design, is currently underway, with the U.S.-led technical teams mapping environmental, economic, and logistical variables. Phase 2, land acquisition, begins in late 2025, often the trickiest part of Philippine megaprojects. Phase 3, construction, is projected to roll out by 2027, building in segments and prioritizing high-demand corridors. Finally, Phase 4, testing and commissioning, will ensure operational readiness and safety by the late 2020s or early 2030s. While the timeline depends on politics, funding, and execution capacity, momentum is already strong. As one Japanese infrastructure diplomat put it bluntly, this is no longer a vision on paper, it's steel in motion. The Subic-Batangas Railway isn't just laying steel on soil. It's laying down hope, connectivity, and a future that finally makes geography work for the Filipino people. Economically, the project is already drawing attention for the scale of opportunity it will create. According to a 2025 report by the National Economic and Development Authority, NEDA, it's expected to generate over 50,000 jobs in its initial phases, from civil engineers and rail technicians to welders, haulers, safety officers, and site support staff. That number could double once the railway becomes operational, opening the door for permanent roles in station management, logistics, maintenance, and even tourism. For every kilometer we lay, 100 livelihoods begin, said one project foreman in Pampanga, where land clearing is already underway. The rail line's real economic punch comes in its power to move goods faster and cheaper. Currently, cargo trucks from Batangas to Subic take 6 to 8 hours, depending on traffic, toll costs, and weather. With the railway, freight time could drop by over 40%, slashing costs and increasing reliability. A dream come true for exporters, manufacturers, and logistics firms. American and Japanese investors have already expressed interest in building dry ports and economic zones along the proposed corridor, especially in Bulacan, Cavite, and Laguna, where infrastructure is improving, but still underserved by rail. If you can move goods from Clark to Batangas without hitting Metro Manila traffic, you've solved half of Luzon's supply chain nightmare, noted a senior executive from the Philippine Exporters Confederation in a recent interview. Tourism stands to get a major boost, too. With stations planned near beach towns, historical landmarks, and resort provinces, access to places like Anawangan Cove, Zambales, Mount Samat, Batan, and Taal Lake, Batangas, becomes simpler, safer, and more affordable. For local communities that depend on seasonal tourists, this rail project could be the game changer that brings year-round foot traffic. Beyond the economy, the railway serves a powerful strategic and security function. Designed with dual-use capability, it allows the armed forces of the Philippines, AFP, and allied U.S. forces to rapidly deploy troops, equipment, and humanitarian aid across Luzon. In a region prone to typhoons and tensions, you need more than good roads. You need resilient corridors, said Lieutenant General Ricardo Bernardo of the AFP Logistics Command. In case of natural disasters, the railway provides a fast, stable route for HADR missions, ensuring that food, medicine, and rescue teams get where they're needed most, when they're needed most. And in a time of increasing maritime assertiveness in the West Philippine Sea, the railway strengthens the country's ability to respond, deter, and defend. It's not just a convenience, it's a capability. Socially, the benefits are just as transformational. For millions of commuters and residents along the route, the railway will offer a cleaner, faster, and far more affordable alternative to cramped buses, slow vans, and pricey fuel-driven trips. What takes 7 hours by road could be done in under 3 hours by train. A difference that means parents getting home for dinner, students reaching school on time, and entrepreneurs saving days of lost productivity. The easing of traffic on key arteries like NLX and SLEX will be felt not only by truckers, but by everyday motorists stuck in gridlock. And environmentally, the line, especially if electrified, could cut emissions by up to 60% per cargo ton compared to diesel trucks, according to 2025 ADB-supported study on Philippine green transport. But perhaps the most powerful benefit is access. Access to jobs, access to education, access to healthcare. For towns and barangays that have long been left behind because they were simply too far off the main roads, this project is a bridge, not just of steel, but of dignity and inclusion. For once, we won't be the last stop, said a community leader from Tiang, Quezon, one of the towns expected to benefit from a future spur line. This train gives us a reason to stay, not just to go. In essence, the Subic-Batangas Railway is more than infrastructure. It's a national statement that progress doesn't need to wait, and that when you build smart, you don't just connect places, you connect people to possibility. While the promise of the Subic-Batangas Railway is undeniable, turning vision into reality comes with its own set of hurdles, complex, deeply rooted, and often underestimated. One of the most immediate and delicate issues is land acquisition. Stretching across roughly 250 kilometers, the railway passes through cities, towns, farms, and family-owned properties, each with its own history, value, and emotional weight. As of mid-2025, preliminary assessments show that more than 8,000 parcels may need to be acquired, with around 4,500 families potentially requiring relocation. "We're not against progress," said a barangay captain from southern Cavite, "but we want fairness. Homes are more than structures. They're memories. Resettlement, legal negotiations, and proper compensation must be handled with empathy, transparency, and speed, or the project risks public resistance and legal entanglements that could stall progress." Environmental concerns also loom large. An environmental impact assessment is not just a checkbox, it's a vital safeguard. The proposed alignment crosses protected watersheds, rice fields, and even ecologically sensitive zones, including portions of Laguna de Bay and the Leon-Balayan coastal stretch. Complying with DENR's 2025 Green Infrastructure Protocols will require the project to incorporate wildlife corridors, noise reduction measures, and flood-resilient design, especially as climate risks grow more unpredictable. Beyond paperwork, the challenge is to build sustainably, proving that development can coexist with ecological responsibility. From an engineering standpoint, the railway faces no shortage of complexity. The terrain alone is a challenge, a blend of congested urban corridors, flat agricultural land, soft floodplains, and elevated ridgelines in parts of Batangas and Zambales. Engineers must design tunnels, viaducts, and elevated tracks to overcome these obstacles without disrupting communities or vital ecosystems. Recent floods in central Luzon and a 5.9 magnitude quake in Batangas in April 2025 have only highlighted the need for disaster-resilient engineering, rail that can bend, not break. Financially, while U.S. backing gives the project a strong foundation, long-term viability remains a major consideration. Operating and maintaining a modern dual-use railway will cost billions over decades. Its success hinges on ridership numbers, cargo volume, and economic activity along the corridor. If we build it, they will come. Only works if the supporting ecosystem, dry ports, feeder roads, logistics hubs, is developed in tandem. Otherwise, sleek trains may run on empty tracks. According to the latest DOTR forecast, at least 15 million annual passengers and 30 million tons of freight will be needed by 2030 to break even. The geopolitical dimension also can't be ignored. With clear U.S. involvement in funding and strategic use, the project inevitably draws regional attention, particularly from China, which continues to assert influence in the West Philippine Sea and maintains its own rail-backed infrastructure diplomacy under the Belt and Road Initiative. Diplomatic experts warn that while the railway enhances Philippine sovereignty and deterrence, it may also invite scrutiny or countermeasures in regional foray. Security-wise, the line's military logistics capability could make it a target in the event of conflict or sabotage, necessitating robust protection protocols and intelligence coordination with allies. Then, there's the internal challenge of governance and coordination. This isn't just a DOTR project. It requires orchestration between multiple Philippine agencies like DPWH, NEDA, LGUs, and even the Department of National Defense, DND, alongside U.S. entities such as USAID and the U.S. Department of Defense. Misalignment in goals, timelines, or execution could delay the project or inflate costs. Regular interagency councils and streamlined decision-making processes will be critical. Finally, public acceptance cannot be taken for granted. The railway will only succeed if it earns people's trust, especially those whose land, routine, or livelihood it affects. Don't just build around us. Talk to us, listen to us, include us, said a youth leader from Laguna. Transparent engagement, real-time updates, and inclusive consultation are not optional. They are essential. In short, the Subic-Batangas Railway holds immense promise. But realizing it means navigating not just terrain and steel, but people, politics, ecosystems, and trust. The Philippine government plays a central role in the Subic-Batangas Railway project, with several agencies contributing to its execution and oversight. The Department of Transportation, DOTR, is the lead implementing agency responsible for overall project management, coordination, and delivery. The National Economic and Development Authority, NEDA, evaluates the project's economic soundness and ensures alignment with the country's broader development goals. The Department of Public Works and Highways, DPWH, supports complementary infrastructure such as connecting roads and bridges, while local government units, LGUs, are crucial on the ground, handling permits, community coordination, and land acquisition. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP as a strategic end user, stands to benefit from the enhanced mobility and logistics enabled by the railway, particularly during joint operations and emergency deployments. On the international front, the United States is a major backer, contributing not just funding, but also strategic and technical expertise. The U.S. Department of Defense DoD has a vested interest in the military utility of the railway, especially for enhanced mobility during joint training exercises and potential regional contingencies. The U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, is expected to provide development assistance and technical support, particularly in areas like environmental safeguards and governance. Financial support may come through institutions like the U.S. Export-Import Bank, Exim Bank, and the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, DFC, both of which can offer credit facilities and investment backing to U.S. firms participating in the project. Meanwhile, major U.S. engineering, rail, and construction companies are expected to be directly involved, bringing in cutting-edge technology and global best practices. Additionally, other international and private sector players may enter the picture. Multilateral development institutions such as the World Bank and Asian Development Bank, ADB, could provide technical input or co-financing if needed, although the project is primarily positioned as U.S.-led. There's also strong potential for private developers and operators to be engaged through public-private partnerships, PPPs, particularly for the operation and maintenance of the railway once constructed. Together, these actors form a robust and multi-layered stakeholder ecosystem, critical to the success and sustainability of this dual-purpose mega infrastructure. As of July 2025, the Subic to Batangas 250 km railway project is gaining significant traction on both the diplomatic and technical fronts. In recent statements, the Philippine Presidential Palace and Department of Transportation reaffirmed the project's strategic priority status under the Marcos administration's Build Better More program. Parallelly, the U.S. Embassy in Manila and officials from the U.S. State Department and Department of Defense have reiterated Washington's commitment, with sources indicating fresh funding discussions are underway. Updates suggest that the detailed feasibility studies, funded in part by the U.S. Agency for International Development USAID, have either reached completion or are in their final phase, paving the way for land acquisition and early works. High-level bilateral meetings held during the June 2025 Indo-Pacific Infrastructure Dialogue in Washington, D.C., placed the railway at the center of discussions, highlighting its role in both economic development and strategic mobility. On Capitol Hill, there's been growing bipartisan support for infrastructure investments tied to Indo-Pacific security. Multiple senators have hinted at appropriations that could partially cover military logistics integration for this project. Locally, preliminary groundwork, such as geotechnical assessments and right-of-way surveys, has reportedly commenced in areas of Zambales and Laguna, raising expectations of a formal, groundbreaking ceremony before the end of 2025. Looking forward, this railway is more than steel tracks and stations. It's a backbone for a modern Philippines. Beyond moving goods and people, it's expected to attract a new wave of foreign direct investment, energize underserved regions, and provide critical redundancy in disaster-prone zones. Positioned as a flagship symbol of U.S.-Philippines strategic synergy, the Subic-Batangas rail line will likely serve as a model for future dual-use infrastructure across Southeast Asia. The Subic to Batangas Railway is not just a project, it's a powerful statement. Spanning 250 kilometers across critical industrial and military corridors, it embodies the Philippines' ambition to modernize, connect, and defend. Fueled by strategic U.S. support and aligned with long-term national goals, this dual-use rail system promises to be a game-changer in the country's infrastructure story. It will unlock economic corridors, strengthen national logistics, boost military readiness, and reaffirm the U.S.-Philippine alliance in a rapidly shifting Indo-Pacific landscape. As groundbreaking draws near, the railway stands as a living blueprint of resilience, progress, and shared strategic vision. Thank you for tuning into our channel. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of global issues.